Hello and welcome to another video on the JJ Think Tank. Today I want to continue my discussion about trauma, but this time from the angle provided by Gabor Mate. So, as you all probably know, Gabor Mate is a well-known medical doctor and physician who mainly deals with addiction and its link to trauma, but he's also a cultural commentator who analyzes the processes occurring now in Western civilization. And he rightly points out that our current civilization and culture is toxic, and that this toxicity exacerbates the mental illness of people living in Western civilization. Now, of course, the problems of the average citizen in the West is different to that of a person from the third world or from countries not considered to be a part of Western civilization. And because of this, many people will criticize Gabor Mate by saying that he focuses on issues that really aren't problems in themselves, and that these problems really are ways of feeling sorry for ourselves, of feeling self-pity for our situation, which is not warranted because, after all, we in the West, we have generally a roof over our heads, we have food on the table, we have clean water, and so forth. Yes, we don't have to struggle for the basic necessities. But then, on another level, I would argue that, yes, these physical problems do not exist in the West. That's true. But mental problems, mental issues, psychological issues, problems regarding relationships between individuals, how an individual is embedded in a culture or a society. These are problems in the West, definitely, because society is not whole anymore. It's not whole, it's not healthy, it's fragmented, and because it's fragmented, it leads to fragmented individuals, yes? And I began my article with this quote by Gabor Mate, which goes as follows. In fact, someone without the marks of trauma would be an outlier in our society. We are closer to the truth when we ask, where do we each fit on the broad and surprisingly inclusive trauma spectrum? And I think we would all agree that this is true. We all subconsciously pick up the fact that everyone is silently suffering inside, some more so, others less. And therefore we are all, to some degree, on this trauma spectrum, yes? And so we need to talk about these issues. We need to talk about trauma, we need to talk about our illness, our toxic culture, and find ways to resolve these issues. So, what is Gabor Mate's perspective on trauma? So, he traces it to childhood, but he then elaborates on this by noting different processes in society that exacerbate these issues that begin in childhood trauma, yes? By childhood trauma, we can equate it to a lack of connection, perhaps, between parents and their children, but also by the children picking up the stressors undergone by their parents, yes? Children are very sensitive people. They pick up on all of this that is going around them when they are young. And over time, because they absorb all of the negative energy around them, it can lead to problems such as addiction and other problems with mental health, which really is a way of adapting to deal with an abnormal environment, because it's a way for the child and then thereafter the teenager to escape from the negativity around them, I guess. And this leads us to ask the question: what is the source of the stressor or the stressors for our, well, in our parents? Why are our parents so stressed and under such pressure? Well, here Gabor Mate discusses the economic structure of the modern West and states that this toxic form of capitalism, neoliberalism, causes much of these stressors, and it's hard not to agree, because when we analyze the state of the various economies found in Western civilization, we can see that there is a growing state of inequality. And of course, with this, with problems in personal finances for families, it automatically creates this stress, which is then transferred onto the children. I would also argue that the stress and the trauma of our parents, because this cycle of trauma goes back, right? Goes back many generations. And when we look at recent history, we can obviously discover that various wars, displacements, other profound negative events leave an imprint on our parents, their grandparents, and this is passed on from generation to generation. Of course, this will be different for each and every family, really. Of course, many families will be less affected because they were always perhaps more wealthy or more privileged. But for the vast majority of us, this is where we can trace, yes, the stressors and the trauma that we all carry, consciously or unconsciously. Now, many people listening to me now will say, "Oh, this is leftist talk, Marxist thinking." Well, I don't know, because I would say there is such a thing as class warfare. Many diagnoses of Marx's were correct. There is, in my view, such a thing as class, as different classes, and at times people have more loyalty to their class than to their nation, yes? People from different backgrounds can notice the same issues taking place, which aren't really ethnic in nature. They're not. The source of the problem is not ethnicity, really, or differences in race and culture. They're more due to this widening economic disparity between, obviously, the lower classes and the higher classes. This is not to say that we should strive for a communist-based system, because of course this is not the answer. Socialism and communism, well, I would say more so communism, yes. Socialism depends on the form, because we can see socialism working to some degree in Norway and the Scandinavian countries, but communism, of course, is a solution that does not work, because it creates misery for all. But some form of regulated capitalism would ease this disparity, yes, between the classes, and create a healthier society. So there is, as Warren Buffett said, there is class warfare, all right, but it's my class, the rich class, that's making war, and we're winning. So if a person such as Warren Buffett is saying this, it's without a doubt true. We've got evidence, yes. George Carlin's famous words come to mind, where he said, "It's a big club, and we are all not in it. Yes, we ain't in it." It's puts everything into perspective, really. But anyway, moving on. Another negative process that is now occurring, and which is quite recent, is the rise of the digital age, yes? So this process began in the early 2000s, and it has created an extremely technological civilization that allows people to become, in many ways, self-sufficient, yes? And so this exacerbates the process of individuality and the fragmentation of our societies. People are more alone than ever. They're more lonely than ever, because they work remotely, they can order food remotely, they can socialize even remotely, they can find ways to communicate and play remotely. They can engage in activities and hobbies remotely. They can access other minds via the internet. Even as I said, employment can be found online. Consumer goods can be purchased. Amazon, all these online commerce websites, e-commerce websites, yes. So all of these processes, they leave little room for human interaction. And so it's up to the individual to find this himself or herself, yes. And this is a negative trend, because if we interact less with our fellow citizens in person, in real life, then by default it will have negative consequences, yes. So for those who have to work, it leads us to a kind of precarious situation, because you have to obviously find a way to devote time to your healing process, but also to work and earn money, yes. And this is difficult, this can be difficult to achieve, because obviously, as I just said, you have to prioritize your time. So I mentioned before about capitalism. We can't really adopt a Don Quixote kind of idealistic mentality. We have to be a bit more pragmatic. We have to basically regulate capitalism and private enterprise, much like the Scandinavian countries. Yes, Norway, we can see it in these countries, a well-functioning state-private economic model. Denmark is another example of such a model being applied. And it gives us hope, yes, it gives us hope that change is possible. But now, on a more personal level, what solution does Gabor Mate provide for the individual in order to heal? So, Gabor Mate focuses on the 4 A's. And these 4 A's are authenticity, anger, agency, and acceptance. So all of these states of mind have to be cultivated in us in order to reframe our minds, reframe our sense of self, and to focus on the present. Because after all, the present moment really is all we have. If we constantly dissociate and think back about the past, or think too much about the future, we lose the beauty of the present moment. And this idea really brings to mind other thoughts of famous coaches or personal development thinkers, such as Tony Robbins, Eckhart Tolle, his book The Power of Now. The solutions are very much the same, yes. I would add also patience here. I would add the letter P. We have to be patient. Recovering from our trauma and regaining our true self can take a while, yes. For some it can take many years, For others, it's an easier process and journey. Before I finish, how could we criticize Gabor Mate? Is there any criticism to be found? Any pitfalls in his argument and his worldview? Well, we could say that at times Mate reduced everything to trauma perhaps too often. He could have been more nuanced. After all, some of our wounds are self-inflicted and due to a lack of responsibility or bad luck. And therefore it seems at times that he emphasized our victim-like nature, yes. Perhaps, yes. But then again, Gabor Mate, he says that we need to take responsibility. So, yes, perhaps there's a slight contradiction there. But still, I think his perspective is useful. I would recommend this book of his, The Myth of Normal, because it's kind of a summary of his overall worldview and gives a picture as to, and a method to heal, yes. So I'll finish up with this quote by Gabor Mate, which goes as follows: "Before the mind can create the world creates our minds." So he amended the phrase of Buddha. Which is true, because as children, as teenagers, we are shaped by the world. By nature we're more immature, we're not serious, and so we are shaped, yes, by forces surrounding us. And how we respond and process the negative events is really up to us and our own minds and our sense of self-efficacy. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found something interesting. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.